Running for our lives in springtime. Spring.
Welcome to Mornings with Mr. Kolton and Nick.
Good morning. Welcome to Mornings with Mr. Kolton. We are going to make cinnamon rolls today. It's a little bit harder than the stuff we've been making, but it's not super hard. It just takes a while, a little bit of patience and a little bit of time. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to activate the yeast so we can make the dough. We're going to warm up some milk and then we're going to add the yeast to it and let it sit for about 10 minutes for it to proof, for it to start to activate, for it to start to live and to bubble.
Okay.
And 3/4 of a cup of milk.
Okay.
For yeast to activate, we need to warm up the milk. So can you put it in the microwave for about 40 seconds? The milk is out of the microwave. And now we have to proof it, which means we put the yeast into the milk and we let it sit for 10 minutes. Because we're using dry active yeast. If we were using instant yeast, you wouldn't have to do this part. So, put in the package, please.
There.
Just dump it right in. If you're using it from the jar, you use 2 1/4 teaspoons. But this, we're just going to use the entire package. Just dump it in.
Whoa, that's a lot of yeast.
Yep.
Is that actually yeast?
Teaspoon of sugar goes in with the yeast. It gives the yeast a little something to eat. The milk itself has sugar, so I don't know if you really need to use this part. When I do it with water usually. There we go. And we just let that sit. Try to get all this off. You want all the yeast in there. And now we sit for 10 minutes. Yeast has proofed, and you can take a look at it right here. You can see how it is all nice and bubbly and goopy on top. That's how you know that the yeast is active and alive.
Wait, you're telling me that yeast is alive? I'm eating something alive in my cinnamon buns?
Yes. So the way it works, the yeast is alive. It's kind of like a microbe. It's not a fungus, not a mold, nothing like that. But it's not a bacteria. It's a whole different thing. But it is actually alive. Each one of those things comes alive when it warms up and gets water in it. And what happens is the yeast, when you put it into the dough, it continues to eat sugar. And when it eats sugar, what it does is it farts out carbon dioxide. And it makes air bubbles. And those air bubbles are what makes a dough rise. In normal baking, you'll use baking soda to make something rise, and that's a chemical reaction. This is actually a physical living action that happened. So first we're going to put the yeast and the milk into the bowl.
All of it?
All of it.
Just like this?
Just pour it all in. Get it all in there. Now we need 1/4 cup of melted butter. So we're going to use half of one of these blocks because each block is a 1/2 cup. And we're going to melt it in the microwave for 30 seconds. We're just going to get slightly melted, but not super hot because we don't want to kill the yeast. If we put in too hot of butter or too hot of oil or too hot of anything, you can kill the yeast, and we don't want to do that. 30 seconds at a time until it's goopy and melted. The butter's a tiny bit warm, so we're actually going to throw that in the fridge for a couple seconds while we put the rest of the ingredients in the bowl. Now we need 1/4 cup sugar. Next, we're going to also put in an egg and an egg yolk.
Whoa, this one's like... Whoa, it's not like a normal egg. It's kind of like pale.
Oh, that's because there's not one of our eggs. Our eggs are nice and yellow because we let them free range.
Oh.
That's a Safeway egg. One of those, and now we need an egg yolk. Do you know how to separate an egg yolk?
No.
So to separate an egg yolk, all you do is you break your egg and then you open up 1/2.
Oh yeah, I remember
like
now.
this.
Yeah.
And then you toss it back and forth as the egg white comes off until you're left with just the egg yolk. And then we put that egg yolk in, plop, and we save the egg white for an omelet tomorrow. Now just use a whisk and whisk that all up really good. And just like before, we didn't put in any salt, although it asks for 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt because we use salted butter. We need 3 cups of flour. And then we put on the dough hook.
Dough hook looks like this. It's made for dough.
Yes, it is. And then we put that on slow
Because there's flour in it.
for about, 8 minutes. Put a splash of oil into a bowl there, Nick, please. That's a heck of a splash. That's good. Then what you do is you take the dough that came out of the mixer. Make sure it's not too sticky. Mix it around in the oil.
Oh, I want to punch it.
Okay, 1 punch. Then we cover it, with plastic wrap. And we let that rise for an hour. So we'll be back in an hour. It has been an hour. The dough has risen about double, a little bit less than double what it was. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to take it out. He's going to play with it.
No, I'm looking at it.
And we're going to split it in half because we're actually only going to do half a batch and use the dough for something else later. Throw a little bit of flour onto the surface. Perfect. We're going to cut this in half. I'm going to save half of it. Shoop. Now we put in a 1/4 cup of butter into a bowl, softened. And we're going to add 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar.
What is that?
2/3 is 2/3, so 2 of these.
1. 2.
Awesome. And then with a wooden spoon, you're going to mix that all together. You want to mix the sugar and the butter together so that we can spread it all over. The dough is, as you can see, a little less than 1/2 centimeter, about 1/2 centimeter. You sprinkle it all over the whole dough.
I have it all over my hands.
So, yeah, that's okay. It's not perfect, but that's sprinkle some cinnamon. I'll just do that because his hands are all greasy.
No, that's a lot of cinnamon.
Not as much as you think.
But
You can put it in with the sugar and the butter if you
it
want,
smells so good.
or just do this, and that's just fine. Now we have to roll it. Pinch it up like this. And we roll it. And as tight as you can. Go for it, Nick. Not about perfection. Spray the pan with an oil spray. We want to cut it in the middle. Cut it in half. Just a nice slice. You don't want to press too hard because you don't want to squish it. And then we're going to cut these in half. And then we're going to cut these ones again in half. Probably twice more. Go for it. Right here.
It's amazing. They're This one's even better.
And we put them in. with a little gap in between them because these will rise. So put them in nice and evenly spaced out. Cover them with saran. We're going to put these into the fridge for the night because it's 10 o'clock at night, and we're going to let them sit in the fridge for the night, and then I'll take them out for an hour in the morning, let them get to room temperature, they'll start to rise, and then we're going to bake them first thing in the morning so we have fresh cinnamon rolls in the morning. So I pulled them out of the fridge about an hour ago, preheated the oven to 350, and now I'm going to put them in. So I put them in over 20 minutes at 350, and they should be ready for when Nick wakes up. Those look pretty good. We'll let those cool, and then we will eat those once Nick gets up. So what do you think?
That's really good.
And we have a success. So we're gonna eat these in the morning, and hopefully you make some too. For now though, we'll see you. Have a great day.
Mornings with Mr. Kolton.